Tell you a story. Wow. So have we got Warehouse 13 fans here? Well, that's why they canceled it, I guess. My wife and I, we hate liking anything on television. Well, that's going to go. We have nothing to complain about now. If they had told me at the beginning this was going to go for 5 seasons, would I still like to do it? Man, this was a great show and a great run. We had great people. So, and we had a great run because of you guys. That's fine. So what can I tell you? What can I tell you? I want to hear a story. You want to hear how I got the part?
Yeah!
My manager didn't tell me about this project. He'd read it and said to himself, this is a role for Saul, but they didn't want to see me for it. They had other ideas in mind, and that was back in the fall of 2007. And finally, there was a writer's strike. And after the writer's strike was over, they had auditioned a number of people, screen tested a number of people for the role of Artie. And they weren't happy, they didn't solve it. And they had cast Eddie and Joanne as Mike and Pete, but they weren't sure what they were going to do with Artie. And finally, Mark Stern, who was running Sci-Fi Network and still is, said, what about Saul? Maybe he's right for this. So at that point, my manager said, okay, now I'm going to tell you, they didn't want to see you before. Now they've tried a bunch of people. Now they think maybe it's right for you. But they were seeing all kinds of people. They were seeing a whole range of different actors of different types. So it was clear that they didn't really know what they wanted. Am I boring everybody?
No!
So what happened was, I read the script and I said to my manager, I know why they can't cast it. And he said, why? And I told him, and he said, what are you going to do? I said, I got nothing to lose, I'm going to tell them. So when I went in to meet the person who was at that time the head writer and had written the script, I went and I said, there was a camera there. It wasn't yet a screen test, it was just, was it being filmed? No, it wasn't being filmed yet. It was just me and him in the room. And I said, he'd seen my work, and he was happy I came in. I said, listen, anybody out there who's in that room is a great actor. You could throw a stone and cast a great actor in this role. And what you want, and the network wants, is you want somebody to come in here and land it, and nail it, right? Because that hasn't happened yet. And he said, yeah. I said, that's not going to happen. And you know why it's not going to happen? I said, now is the time where you can throw me out and say, who the hell does he think he is? But I got nothing to lose. The reason that it's not going to happen, and you've already tested all these people, is it's not on the page yet. It's not on the page. And he said, what do you mean? I said, I think I have a better idea than to tell you what I mean. I said, now I could leave, I don't have to stay. I don't want to be presumptuous, and I don't want to insult anybody. So the truth is that I need to make some changes, maybe 20% to this. I have to improvise a little to show you what I mean. But I've had experience with this kind of thing before, and after I leave, everybody says, who the hell does he think he is? So I don't want to go through that. I can just leave now. He said, no, what are you going to do? I said, well, I tell you. Well, we got somebody reading with you. How much are you going to improvise? I said, no, I've done this kind of thing before. I'll leave my cue lines the same, but I'll just mess around a little bit. Now, the character that they had created in the script was a kind of welcome to Warehouse 13 kind of guy, a very kind of master of ceremonies kind of guy. And the guy that I started to do in that audition, the third or fourth thing on his agenda was hiring these new agents. He really wasn't that interested. It was one of the things. And he would do that kind of thing. He would be a little paranoid and wasn't too happy about being in the warehouse. He had a love-hate relationship. I created what I thought, somebody who'd been there for 35, 40 years, he'd have a love-hate relationship with him, he'd have a darker character, and he'd be a little bit more paranoid, a little bit more eccentric, and I wouldn't try to be so likable. Well, it seemed to work out. That's how that happened. And then when I went into the audition Finally, the screen test was between me and somebody else, and Eddie was there. He was kind of a big True Romance fan. He loved True Romance. And so was that guy. And Eddie was excited to be auditioning with me and doing the screen test with me. He already had the role. And I said, hey man, and he said he was really excited. We met each other. I said, congratulations. It's a really great project. He said, I can't wait to do this screen test with you. And I had this bag with me, my lucky bag, and I had all kinds of different props because I knew Artie was a guy with things. And I had it all learned. And I said, listen, I'm going to fool around a bit, you know. Why don't you have your script with you? And he said, no, I'm good, man. I said, you really don't need the script? He said, no, I'm good. So now we're in a screen test situation. We're in a screen test situation. And the rhythm goes, rhythm, line. And it comes to my punchline, and Eddie goes, what? I think there's Eddie McClintock right there. Come in here, Eddie. And he blows his line. Hey, Eddie. Sorry, man. No, it's cool. Why don't you take your script? They'll shoot it again. No, I'm good. Take your script. I'm cool. Line. Ready for my punchline, and... Oh, shit, I'm sorry, man. Take the script in your hand! So, he never will live that down, but it was fun. Anyway, that kind of thing, you know, I knew that I had to not try to be liked. It's an old thing I learned from auditioning. It's not try to figure out what they wanted. I try to be accommodating, but I don't try to figure out what other people want. I have to like it myself and I have to figure out what I want. And it's probably true of most job interviews, right? You have to be yourself, otherwise you're stuck being somebody you didn't want to be to begin with. And when you're doing a series, that's not going to be fun. But this is one of the most fun jobs I have ever had in a very long career. It was a great role to play, and we had the great good fortune of having one of the best showrunners in the business, Jack Kenny. So that was what was really cool about it. Shall I answer questions from you guys? Would you like that? I think you have to go to a microphone. Is that the rules? Or do you just shut them out?
No, you can talk in the microphone. It's a lot easier on your voice. My question is, I watched a few episodes, it's very nice, but again, why was it canceled? You seem to be doing a great job there.
Because you liked it. They keep an eye on you. You know, why are shows canceled? Here's what happens. I mean, as far as, you never really know. You're not involved in the meetings. Every network has its own culture, its own system for whether a show is renewed or not. A greenlight committee made up of different executives who are responsible for different areas, carry different weight. When this show came on the air, after in 2009, the show was used to rebrand the network into SYFY. But the reason it was rebranded was because they needed to expand their audience. And frankly, what they really needed to do was, even though they knew that women were diehard fans of science fiction, there weren't enough women who were going to tune into a sci-fi network. They were scared off by the concept of it. And they wanted to expand it. In order to do that, they created this show and let us be the rebranding emblem for the show. Now, we're not traditional science fiction. There's no aliens, there's no space in our show. There's not one artifact that's from an alien planet. This is a closer to, I guess, Raiders of the Lost Ark than anything else. It has historical stuff. It's science. It's a fantasy adventure show, a thriller-romedy, as we used to call it. It's a comedy, doesn't take itself too seriously. It was a new kind of thing. They had already had a success with Eureka, a great show that they had with a lot of humor in it. In fact, I did an episode, first season of Eureka, and which happened to be about an artifact, which was kind of odd. And, in fact, if Eureka was going to continue, I said to them, bring me back. I'm like, let's make that character I played, Artie, who was there in disguise. You know? We did some crossover stuff with Neil Grayston. We did great stuff with Eureka, and I liked that show. And that was a show that was canceled too soon, I thought, too. But what happened was, they put a lot of money into the series. A lot of advertising. We had the best numbers in the history of Sci-Fi, that network, and we continue to have the best numbers for 4 years. Then they decided to spend over $200 million on their new show, Defiance. Really good show, but they decided, the whole network decided, it seems to me, to go back to a more traditional sci-fi. Good or bad decision, it's their decision. And they made a huge mistake with us, which seems clear now, but I guess wasn't clear to them then, was even though they stopped, they don't want to spend money on advertising when a show is in its third and fourth year. They figure it's got its core audience, they don't want to spend any more money there. Even though they only advertised us on the show Defiance, they made this ridiculous mistake, I think, of putting us on at 10 o'clock. We're a family show. We're a show that unlike a lot of shows, it's an hour-long show you can watch with your kids. The violence is mostly off screen. It's very funny. There's usually something for a 10-year-old and something for an 80-year-old, and it works on a lot of different levels. There's going to be stuff that's over the heads of your kids, and you're not going to be bored by it, and there's going to be stuff that they find ridiculous and funny, and they're going to like it. Family show, you could watch it together. You're not going to watch it together at 10 o'clock. And what I discovered when my daughter just graduated college 4 years ago was a revelation to me. I'm sure you all know this. When I went to visit her in college, there was not one television set anywhere on campus. And there isn't one probably anywhere on any campus in the United States and Canada. And that's the demographic they want. They're not watching television, right? They're watching it on other media. And they're counting live viewers as more valuable to the advertisers. And that's a transition that's going on all over the industry. The same pair of eyes are going to watch it later on Sci-Fi with a commercial or on Hulu or whatever, but it's discounted. Why? Because the advertisers can do that so far. There's a fight going on. And some of the victims of these fights are shows like Warehouse. If we weren't getting the live viewers at 10 o'clock on, what was it, Monday or Tuesday night, if we weren't getting those viewers on Monday night at 10 o'clock, we're getting 1.5 million viewers, and another 2.5 to 3 million people are watching it, and the rest of the week, they're not counted the same way, they got canceled. And that's the way the ball bounces. And I have to tell you, although we felt we had a couple to 3 more seasons left in us, it's a shame. It's the way it is. I can't complain. I had 5 extraordinary seasons. We're just shooting the last 3 of our last 6 episodes. At least they gave us 6 to go out on. They didn't just cut the head off the show. It's going to have a beautiful ending, I guarantee you. Very funny and incredibly moving. Any of us can't get through the last episode without tears. It's a very beautifully written 6-part series that'll be on next June. I'm grateful to the network and the studio for not cutting us off ignominiously. And it's a testament to you guys, to the fans. They didn't want to insult you, and they didn't want you to get pissed off. I'm still pissed off. But it's been a wonderful adventure. I've had a very long, very old, I've had a very long career. But this is certainly the best job I've ever had, and certainly the most fun role. Look, I'm 65 hours playing the same role. I'm never tired of it. It's a great character. A lot of fun.
Okay, thank you. But another reason they might have canceled is because it's cheaper to do the so-called reality shows than a real show.
No, it's not what's going on.
No.
It's not being canceled because of a reality show taking its place. It's because they have a number of new pilots on the air, and it's a mathematical equation that goes on, depending on the cost of the show. It's a very expensive show. All our money is on the screen. I mean, most of it. We're not a huge, big star cast that's taken the most of the budget. The show it was being produced for over 3 million episodes. That's network money, and it really looks good. And they have to look at spending, whatever that is, $40 million a year, and whether or not that was worth it to them based on the advertising they're going to get, the DVD sales, and their foreign sales, and the numbers that they were getting. And the equation ended up what it was. That's how they work it out.
Okay, thank you for the insight.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
This is my way of trying to read your mind for a moment. As a character actor, which two roles, movies or TV, would you say are your greatest polar opposites? And then I'll tell you what I thought you were going to say.
Polar opposites. Do you know how many things I've done, man? I have no idea. I mean, I like playing bad guys a lot. Most actors do, because you get an opportunity. I mean, my really old friend, Brent Spiner, and I did a great episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation. And I had a blast doing that show. That was funny. I did that show. It was a very odd story. They had another actor. I was a fan of that show. It was in its second season. I really wanted to see it being shot. A friend of mine was directing it. And Brent, I'd done theater with Brent a few years earlier in New York, and I wanted to go to the set. And my friend said, was directing, said, well, come, let me get 3 days under my belt. And then, I was visiting Los Angeles. I wasn't living there. I was living in New York. And he said, then you can come visit Brent and me, but I'd like to get 3 days. So the weekend, they shot Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I guess. And on the weekend, or Sunday, before cell phones, I was staying at a friend's house who did not appreciate the phone ringing at 2 a.m. And my friend said, how badly do you want to visit the set? What? Said the guy who was guest star just tried to kill himself. It was terrible. It was an actor called David Rappaport. He was a little person who eventually, a year later, did off himself. And it was terrible. Whatever. It was a Rhodes Scholar, great actor, and he, that weekend, had tried unsuccessfully to commit suicide, and they had to recast. And Brent said, isn't Saul in town? So without auditioning, without doing anything, partly because of some other film I'd done, I was approved, and I had to go down Sunday, 3 o'clock in the morning to Paramount and change the costume, do a makeup test, do all this stuff. And on Monday, I started shooting this role. Now, Brent and I was almost a two-hander. If you remember that episode, guys? So, I had the best time. To me, it was like doing children's theater. The character was an alien, so no one could tell me what was emotionally apt and what was not. So it was a character who was as evil could be. And I remember, having a hugely great time with it. And then my friend who was directing it said, I got to talk to you. And I said, what is it? I'm getting a note from, this is the second day of shooting, got a note from upstairs, from the boys. It's on the same lot. They want you to tone it down. Really? I said, do you think that I should tone it down? And the director said, honestly, no. And Brent, this is only second season, goes, what's happening? They want me to tone it down. No, those bastards! I said, Brent, I'm not sure what they mean. The character is outrageous. He's an outrageous character. He's very funny, very scary. Could they come, none of you believe, if you guys said, I could talk to somebody, said, I tell you what, would you tell them that I would love to be able to have a conversation with them, either on the phone, or I could go to their office, or they can come down here, whichever they like, so that somebody who knows what they're talking about, that wants me to tone this down, can tell me exactly what they mean. And they refused to talk to me. So I said, well, fuck them then. I have a feeling that character could have come back. My friend who was the director was not asked back. And that's the way the ball bounces, and it's become one of the most loved episodes of that series, that particular episode. I'm very proud of it. And that was a really evil character. Certainly an alien, evil alien is a lot different from Artie, But I've played a lot of different roles. So what are the 2 roles you were talking about?
My guesses would be, on one end, the writer from Unforgiven, and obviously at the other end, producer from True Romance.
Oh, right. Both
Thank you very much.
showbiz, so to speak. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm a big fan of Stargate SG-1, and I know you were a guest star in the
One of my
two-parters.
favorite things I've ever done in my life was working with that wonderful actress who was just here a minute ago. And that wonderful cast. It was you're talking about Heroes Part 1 and Part 2. You guys familiar with that? Yeah! It was part of Stargate SG-1. I was only supposed to do one episode. Playing a reporter, the military, the characters that were the lead characters thought I was a left-wing reporter that was going to trash the military. And it turned out that the character did exactly the opposite. He ended up honoring their service, especially since there was the death of a major character on that episode. And it was such an interesting episode that the producers said to me, you know, it's going long, but we've decided not to cut it. We've decided to turn it into a two-parter. Those rare, wonderful things that happens. It's so oddly rare in our business is that people do the right thing. Producers especially, they did the right thing, and I'm really proud of it. Thank you for bringing up Heroes. I'm really proud of those episodes. They're really cool. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
My question for you is, what is your favorite artifact?
Artifact?
Yeah.
You know,
You can take one home.
You know, I've been asked this before. They're asking actors if they want to bring props home. I'm one of the few who said no. You know, my memory of this show is not about things. This is a family. You know, we became a family. My memory is of great moments between us. It's not always been like any family. We've had our fights, and it's part of what makes the show great. We have our ups and downs, but there's a lot of love on that set. And there's one thing I'd like. You know the artifact that I'd like to be invented? A Nielsen rating machine that tells us the true goddamn ratings. Hi.
Hi, good afternoon. You did a wonderful piece on the outer limits concerning concentration camps during World War II. And from what I read, it kind of hit home for you because of your family, what they went through. And I'd just like to ask you how that affected you and your experience in doing that particular.
I have a wonderful friend. One of my oldest friends in the world is an actor called Peter Riegert, who is he's about to star in a new Fox television series called Dads. Seth MacFarlane is producing. And Peter, who you may remember from Animal House or Local Hero or a lot of Crossing Delancey, he's a great actor, very close friend of mine. And whenever this is probably about 15 years ago. We were sitting together talking. He said, you know, I just got offered this episode of Outer Limits where I'm a Nazi hunter and I go back in time to kind of concentration camp, Auschwitz kind of place, and rescue people and time travel. And I turned it down, man. I don't want to do an hour-long sci-fi episode about the Holocaust. It's just going to diminish it. And I said, yeah, I kind of know what you mean. The phone rang right at that minute with my agent saying, listen, they're offering you this role. I said, Peter, you're not going to believe this. I got to explore this. This is too funny. He said, go ahead, man. So I called the producer-writer, Sam Egan. And I said, you know, I happened to be sitting with Peter Riegert, and he laughed. And I said, you know, he turned it down because he thought it could be diminishing the whole experience. It's one of the, you know, it's like doing a sci-fi episode about 9/11 or so. It's really difficult. And he said, I know how he feels, and this is really a story about my father, said Sam Egan, who was in Auschwitz. I said, you know, my parents were not in the concentration camp, but my parents were Polish Jews, and they were hidden for 2.5 years. And I wrote a book called So Many Miracles, which if I can plug is going to go, it's going to be reissued on Amazon next month. the book I wrote about my parents' experiences, and
You're Jewish?
and, no, I changed my name from Jim Scott to Saul Rubinek because I look Jewish.
I thought you were Scandinavian.
I thought I'd get more work with a Jewish name.
Hi, guys.
So I was talking to Mark Stern, who's running Sci-Fi. We just had a dinner at Comic-Con together, and Mark Stern was working for Trilogy with the writers, the people who were producing The Outer Limits. And I said I ended up being really proud of that episode. It could have gone another way, but it turned out what they called to be their 100th episode, the episode that they held up of that whole series of Outer Limits. So yeah, it was dangerous and to do, but it turned out to be a really cool episode, and it was, as you said, connected to my experience, my family's experience. And it's funny, you guys know this better than anybody else. You know it from watching sci-fi, maybe longer, and maybe deeper fans than I am. But science fiction can allow you to talk about profound and difficult events. If the scripts are great, you can talk about space, you can talk about the future, you can talk about aliens, you can talk about fantastical characters. But if you've got great writing and great acting, it's talking about your life now in a good way. If it isn't, it isn't a great show. But if it is a great show. You guys know that. Yes, ma'am?
What was your favorite Artie Claudia moment?
It was the very first day that we met. She was 18 years old, just a year older than my daughter was at the time. And Allison Scagliotti had just gotten the role. She was going to zap Artie and kidnap him, thinking that Artie was responsible for the death of her brother. And she was an 18-year-old who was already, when you say already a seasoned pro.
36.
Yeah, 36-year-old. And even though there was a father-daughter relationship, or kind of a sorcerer's apprentice relationship between me and her, and there is in real life a kind of father-daughter relationship between me and Allison, as there is between Artie and Claudia, she was immediately a fully seasoned professional, and I thought of her as nothing but an equal colleague, and we've worked that way since. It's a very special friendship that I have with her, and so I'll always remember that first day and how awesome she was coming into the middle of a show. It was already cast and having to do good work, and she nailed it. She was awesome, and she continues to be an amazing actor. Thanks for your question.
Oh, my
We're both
question
here now. You can ask.
Yeah, perfect timing. My question is very similar. Just favorite moment in general, like on the set, like serendipitous thing.
We were
funny
just
thing.
talking about that. Eddie and I just did a scene together. 2 scenes in a row. We did it real quick, and we were like, he said, like Abbott and Costello. Our timing was really cool. I said, how many times? It's just the two of us in a scene. And 5 times in 5 years. And then I remember that amazing scene where we had at Lena's, where it was a very emotional scene. We're talking about life, and you say, if I could have, Artie, I would be proud to have had the life like yours. And we've had very funny moments and great moments, but whenever we were together, some of my favorite stuff on the show is with this monkey over here.
Yeah, for sure. When I work with Saul, especially because Jack Kenny, our EP, is such a fan of the old, classics, and even since I'm old, I like them too, like the old Carol Burnett, Abbott and Costello, Martin and Lewis, and so when Saul and I get together and we're working, it's just.
Yeah, but that was fun.
It's just
When you know your lines, it's really cool.
Did he tell the story? It's a funny one.
It turned out okay. I killed it.
I was nervous
Thanks.
sitting next to Lee Donowitz.
Actually, that's the question I'm going to ask. I love the blooper reels. What are your favorite bloopers?
I don't make mistakes. We make some doozies, don't we? Mostly he farts a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
For me, I like the bloopers where I know that I'm not really having trouble. Some of the bloopers, they look like bloopers, but they're just me grinding down into the hole of despair. I can't get the line right, and then Jack will be yelling, "You should have looked at the damn script, I want to see you." And, and that makes it better. That puts me more at ease. And, generally it has nothing to do with whether you know it or not. It's just something the words aren't coming together correctly, and they're for some reason hard to.
My favorite moments are when we're doing an incredibly dramatic scene, and we've all done something to crack ourselves up, and we cannot keep a straight face, and we're cracking up take after take, and the crew's laughing with us for 3 takes. When you're into take 9 and you're still cracking up,
Okay, all right.
trying to get home, and that makes it worse, like laughing in church. It's the worst.
Then you have to get dead puppies.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that can bring me down.
Directions that he gets.
How many Cialis commercials can you have during one show? I'm just like, wow. And then somebody said to me, he goes, Eddie, the people that watch Warehouse 13, they don't have trouble getting boners, they have trouble getting chicks. That's about right.
You asked. They didn't ask about that.
They didn't.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for coming back, Eddie, and welcome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice to have
Let's imagine for a moment a miracle happens, and people who can do that sort of thing realize that there should be a few more seasons of Warehouse 13. What stories that would otherwise go untold would you like to see in that event?
Well, I know one that Jack always wanted to do was Hitler's microphone. The microphone that Hitler used to captivate his audience. I don't know if it never got made because they thought it was too.
Yeah, they tried, they looked at it, and it became too big an issue, like dealing with that subject.
But as you said earlier, if you deal with it in the right way, and you put it in the right perspective, and it can be done well. And
They would have done it.
I think
they would have done it. The thing that's really cool about it is because Jack wrote a family, and all the dynamics of a family, that what would have happened is we would have grown and continued to grow as a family, and have all the difficulties and joys that a family dynamic has, which already is there in all the 5 seasons. And so you can imagine, it's not a particular story, that's a particular artifact, but the thing that made the show work wasn't artifact of the week. The thing that made the show work was that you felt that these people loved each other. And the joy and the fun that you see coming off the screen is real. That if you visit our set, we spend a lot of our days laughing our asses off. We have a lot of fun doing the show, and I think it's contagious.
Just last week, we're doing this episode, I don't know if Saul mentioned, where where Artie, Micah, and Pete get thrown into a telenovela. So we've had to learn, we've been taking Spanish, I've been taking Spanish lessons for the last 6 weeks, and it's 80 pages of Spanish. And it'll all be subtitled. It's hilarious. But it's so, and I play Armando. And giant mustache and like a unibrow. My hair. And we laughed so hard the other day doing this.
We couldn't continue.
That everybody on the set is just like, we're just having a great time.
Yeah, we
continue to have a great time. And ironically, this is probably going to be one of the best episodes of the series. So it's like, even here at the end, we're still making great and competent shows that everybody can enjoy. I guess that's the upside of us going away is we're going out on before everybody's like, okay, just go.
Yeah.
Okay?
Even wanting more is good.
Yeah.
Well, bravo, gentlemen.
Thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
Practical jokes that we play on each other. He's very gassy, did I mention?
Gassy.
Nobody likes to get in there. Believe me, we want something more interesting.
Just like we were up having our pictures taken, and I burped really bad. He was like, "Would you please not do that around me?" And so that's kind of, yeah.
Practical jokes? You know, I'll tell you what we do. We don't have time much. Honestly, we don't. We're working 14, 15, 16-hour days. We're trying to fit a lot into an 8-day schedule. We do what's called acting, schmacting, and fact. Acting is regular acting, schmacting, acting. Schmacting is in front of a green screen. Facting is...
We're like,
yeah.
okay, and the director's like, okay, it's flying over your head. It's over your head. It's scaring you. You're frightened. You know, oh, now you're weepy. You're weepy. You see something sad. So you're like, there's nothing there. There's nothing, so that's schmacking.
And facting is when we have a lot of exposition to do. And we do a lot of facting, acting, schmacting every day. And it's really tough work. We have to have fun. If we started doing a lot of practical jokes, we would never get through the day. Yeah.
It's been really refreshing to hear some very candid conversation about the industry in particular, especially someone who's studied a lot of it. I would love to take a class by you. That would be really interesting for me. But how do you see the future of television, particularly the sci-fi genre, and the ability to monetize the shows, the story? Because it's difficult at the moment, and I don't see it getting better into the future.
You know what? They've been trying to figure out how to monetize this industry since Edison thought that this industry would be an industry like the 19th century, like inventing the typewriter or the roller press, or that all the profits in a very sober and civilized business, like 19th century business, would be in the sale, manufacture, and lease of hardware. They didn't realize, all those people that fought the early part of the 20th century, fought like tooth and nail for control of patents, that this was going to be a century about content. And more importantly, the people that were learning in distribution and exhibition, what the audiences liked, and the producers who said, we can't just learn what they like. We got to make them want what we can give them, and what we're able to give them, based on the finances. So there's always a struggle between what they're able to do and what they're able to afford to do. And that struggle's been there since the Pope asked Michelangelo to do that work. And he said, how long have I got? One for the Pope or one for himself? That's been going on forever. How to monetize this business is a discussion that goes on daily between the different facets of it. You can read online right now George Clooney in a diatribe against somebody who's into hedge financing, who's put down a network, a whole studio for having 2 flops in a row, which is incredibly unfair given what's going on. He said the last person in the world is that bean counter is going to tell us about, decide the fate of an entire company based on 1 or 2 examples. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know this, that ever since it began, people looking at art, painting, listening to music, the artists have got to create, we're going to create stuff that either you want to watch or listen to, or they're not. It's either going to matter in your life or it isn't. We all know that crap can sell. They can figure out how to sell crap. It doesn't last that long, but crap can sell. And they'll make it. They'll continue to make it. If it sells. That'll always happen.
Snooki.
But they're going to...
Kim Kardashian.
They'll sell crap.
Justin Bieber. So, who's to judge?
So, they've got to make good shows that you want to watch. And they've got to give the writers and the actors a chance to do them well. And sometimes they'll be right, and sometimes they'll be wrong. There's an old French expression, plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. The more things change, the more they're the same. And
I thought that meant, hey man, your underwear is stinking.
That too.
That's weird, because that's what I know.
I understand that. That's also a very important thing about humanity. Change your underwear. Yeah.
Hello. 2 things. One, I want to say thank you. I think every person in this room cheered when we saw the Christmas episode and the shore-leave bunny was in the back. My second question is, you watch the show and you love it, and there's a certain dynamic. Artifact comes on the radar, the agents go out, hijinks happen, hopefully they get it, or there's a cliffhanger. But then every once in a while, there's these moments where the show showcases an actor's natural talent. Two that come to mind are you playing the piano and Allison singing at amateur night. So I was wondering if there is an interesting story behind that or some kind of motivation where the writers say, you know what, we're going to devote 5-10 minutes to showcasing this.
Well, at the beginning of the show, Jack Kenny asked us, he's like, what do you guys want your characters to be like? What do you want them to do? And for me, I said I want Pete to be a former United States Marine, because it's important for me to acknowledge the men and women of our armed forces. I wanted him to be a fan of comic books. You know, I love Godzilla and I love the Hulk and I love comic books. And I was a former wrestler. I wrestled for 12 years in grade school and wrestled in college. And I also have 13 years sober. So, you know, these are all things that make it easy.
And still tonight.
Yes. So, I mean, and that goes for Saul, like that went for Allison, and I think we all have those conversations with him. So, you know, I think it was a way to integrate the characters, you know, to make it more seamless, you know, between who we are and who our characters are.
The biggest compliment that we got from, we did a panel, it was a very emotional panel at Comic-Con because it was going to be probably our last panel as a whole cast together. But one of the things that Jack was saying, and I felt very touched by, is he said, you know, I've got a cast here that can do anything. They're on a tightrope walk, have to go from comedy to drama to pratfalls to being able to sing, to dance, they've got to be able to do it at a moment's notice, and I can call on any of them to do it. And I felt good about that. That's the most important moments for us, is that we're asked to be versatile. I mean, I think it'd be nice to be able to listen, you can't turn down work. I'm a family man. I've got kids in school and stuff. But if I were doing a regular procedural, I think I'd put pins in my eyes. Because, you know, they're doing, a lot of those actors, great actors, are doing the same thing every episode. And what happened? You can't go out and do that. That's not your job. Can you imagine having a boss role like that? It would just go out of my mind. But, you know, we did a different show every week. It was like a mantra I used to have. They got sick of me saying it. I said, the minute the writers figure out exactly what Warehouse 13 is, we're screwed. And we know we've got to go find artifacts and neutralize them. But the show is different.
And yet we were screwed anyhow. There you go.
So it was, you know, we've been very fortunate to be able to practice our craft in a variety of ways. It's what's been demanded of us. And we're really lucky.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I had a question about
No. I like to feel like Phil Donahue. Yes!
watch that. I have a question about the industry and science fiction. Are more actors more inclined now to do science fiction because of convention work and other income that you get, as opposed to just the regular street TV?
I've never heard of an actor, I honestly have to tell you, on the 45 years that I've been doing this, I've never heard an actor say, oh, I'm not doing that, it's not sci-fi, I'm not doing sci-fi. I've never heard that. You've heard that from an actor? Well, I've never done, I don't, actors want to work. If the script is good, and it looks like the money's okay, and they're not going too far away from their family.
What about if the money's good and the script is okay?
What about if the money's good and the script's not okay?
Yeah.
That's your career. No.
I owe it to myself. The If any of you saw Boogeyman, you know.
Hey, Death Wish 5. Look, we make a living, we gotta make a living. And you try to, sometimes you gotta take a sow's purse and try to turn it into, a sow's ear and turn it into a silk purse sometimes. But the truth is, no, I mean, I think that sci-fi's, right from the first silent films, some of the best were science fiction or fantasy films. Actors want to work, and they want to work on good material. And if it isn't good material, it might be bad sci-fi, might be a bad comedy, might be bad drama. You look at a number of things, you know how few actors get to choose in our world? How few? Maybe you don't know this. I'll tell you. What's the lowest paid union job in America? No. The lowest paid union job in America in terms of per capita is SAG, Screen Actors Guild and AFTRA. 90% of the people earning money from their union, being actors, 90% earn less than $5,000 a year. Less than $5,000 a year. 10% make over yes, they're making more as waiters, right? That's how they earn a living. But as actors, they're making less than $5,000. 90%. 90. 10%? All right, there's 10% left. 9% of those make under $50,000 a year. 9%. 1% makes more than that. So you think that those actors get to choose what they're going to do? Say yes or no, they don't.
They're more excited to get a sci-fi now because of the convention.
Maybe.
Even after the show ends,
They're saying, she's saying there's a life after the show because of conventions. No question. I didn't know anything about it.
Neither did I.
You know, so it's a wonderful thing. You get to meet your fans, make a little money for your family, and it's pretty cool to meet the people that made your show possible. You know?
I mean, I saw Trekkies, the movie Trekkies back in the day, and you know, I mean, it kind of gave people a bad rap on convention years a little bit, I thought. But then when someone said, you know, you should come to these conventions and check them out. As a matter of fact, when I was here a few years ago, it was one of my first conventions, and I mean, just blown away by people's honesty about and just willingness. Like, I love the fact that people walk around in costume. You know, normies will go, oh man, those people, they walk around in the costumes, and isn't that strange and odd and weird, and aren't they weird? And I'm like, dude, you know every batting average of every baseball player and pitcher that's ever been. How's that any less weird? You know, it's like, and you know, I mean, I'm meeting scientists and doctors and all kinds of people here that, you know, I was a big jock in high school, so to actually have an astrophysicist come up and say, man, I love your work is such a huge compliment.
I'll tell you what's different, and it's been growing, is that you guys, the audience now, is able to make a difference about what's going to be on television in a way you could never before. It's interactive. You want Warehouse 13 back? Get 3 million people together. Is that possible? Yes, it is possible. There are shows that are back. Why is Arrested Development back on Netflix? Because of you guys. Because of people like you. Passionate. You're passionate about something, they'll listen to you. They didn't know.
Chuck, I think the fans saved that show Chuck too.
Yeah. It happens. They'll listen to you. It's interactive. It's a new world, and it's and more and more. Thank you.
Yes. Yes, you're next.
Okay. So Amanda was on just a second ago, and her sanctuary is Sanctuary for All, and I found that with Warehouse. Okay. You guys have a beautiful mix of everything, of all types of people, for sexuality, ethnicity, everything, gender. I mean, the more women than men. I mean, like, I was just behind 6 white guys to get to talk, but you guys are the only dudes for the first. I mean, you guys were the only men for the first 2 seasons. You know what I mean? Like, it was amazing as a woman to watch
powerful women in the show.
It is, and the queerness and people of color being your bosses and power. Did you guys consider all of that? Was it just a constant that you were thinking about bringing it in, and was it considered, or did it just
Sometimes
happen?
the networks are smart. Jack Kenny, who's a gay man, came in to pitch himself as the showrunner, whose history is that of sitcom and of not anything to do with science fiction. He said, I don't know anything about science fiction, but I know something about families, and I know something about humor and drama, and I know what people want to watch. And if you hire me, then that's what I'll give you. And they were smart. This network wanted women. You know what they had to do to get a women audience? They had to make the show smarter, not just, they had to tone down the violence. They had to make it funnier. And a lot of women brought their husbands and boyfriends to this show. It's why we got the numbers that we got. Because they started watching and goes, oh, this isn't just blowing things up in space. And their boyfriends go, did you see Battlestar Galactica? It was brilliant. It wasn't stuff just blowing up in space still. Still, women stopped being afraid to come to the show, and they brought not only their husbands and boyfriends, but their kids, and said, you know what, this is okay for my kid. I don't mind my kid watching this show. And that made us feel great. We were the only two dads in the cast. We were the only ones with kids, and different ages since they're very young. But I was happy for my son was only 14 when the show started, 13. And I didn't, my wife and I weren't letting him watch everything, just like I'm sure you guys don't. And I was thrilled. So yes, they were smart. They thought about ethnicity, they thought about women, they wanted a bigger audience, and they needed the right person to put it in, not cynically, Yeah. And as a result, it was a good show,
And as far as the sexuality, also they didn't hold the whole sexuality thing out as a
carrot,
as a show of how equal opportunity.
No, it wasn't political.
I mean, and that's exactly what Jack wanted. It's like, look, this is the way life is. These people are in your life. These people are all around you.
He happens to be gay.
He happens to be gay. Not like, this is the big gay episode that we're going to give you.
Yeah.
The response your character has to him coming out is easily the best response I've ever seen for a straight male. I died with tears streaming down my face.
Well, Jack Kenny said to me, he goes, Eddie, I want Pete to be the coolest straight man that I've never met. I mean, and Pete just comes from this insanely honest and non-judgmental place, which is so great to be able to play that. I mean, to have people be able to watch this show and kind of go, wow, man, it gives me goosebumps to think that, it can be that impactful.
Listen, I have a feeling that this may happen. We'll have 65 hours or so of television. They'll start to get syndicated. And I have a feeling that the show might start infiltrating the consciousness of people who are not like you guys, fans of sci-fi. That'll start going into the people that watch just network TV. And over the next 3 or 4 years, Warehouse 13 might get known by the rest of America.
Yeah.
Because of those kinds of shows.
Saul,
thank you.
We want to thank you for coming
Thank you.
today. It's an absolute thrill to have you here.
Thanks, everyone. Made my visit here great.
And remember, everybody, he's going to be back on Sunday tomorrow, so you can hear more of him again.
I thought you were here at 3:30, that's the program.